What if everything that you knew or thought you knew about reality has been carefully constructed to keep you comfortable in your illusions, while the truth waits just beyond the edge of your willingness to look? Well, we've been journeying through the most profound teachings of Gurdjieff's masterpiece, and today we reach chapters that reveal the deepest psychological mechanisms that govern human consciousness itself. If the previous chapters showed us the cosmic forces at work, these next three chapters expose the internal machinery that keeps us trapped in the waking dream many of us mistake for reality. I'm Mark Roach. Welcome back to Transcendent. The 13th teaching, Why Fantasy Becomes Reality, chapter 13, begins with penetrating questions from Hussein that cuts to the heart of human psychology. My dear, the kind grandfather, be so kind as to explain to me, if only in a general way, why those beings there are such that they take the ephemeral for the real. Now, in that old language, the grandson is asking the grandfather why so many are taking the ephemeral for the real. That means taking the fake for the real. Well, this isn't just curiosity. That's a tough question to ask your grandfather. This is the fundamental question about human consciousness that explains almost everything else about our species. Beelzebub's answer, the grandfather's answer, reveals something shocking. The psychological peculiarity didn't exist in early humans. It developed during later periods as a specific abnormality arising from historical circumstances. Think about what this means. The tendency to mistake illusion for reality isn't built into human nature. It's a learned dysfunction that crystallized over time. The mechanism Beelzebub describes is devastatingly accurate. Humans gradually abandon what he called being-Partkdolg-duty, which means the active conscious participation required for genuine understanding. Instead of engaging this faculty, we allowed our separate being centers to process impressions mechanically without the coordinated efforts necessary for authentic comprehension. Here's where it gets really disturbing. Beelzebub explains that humans now form convictions through what he calls the Smith and Brown phenomenon. In general, any new understanding is crystallized in the presence of these strange beings only if Smith speaks of somebody or something in a certain way, and then if Brown says the same, the hearer is quite convinced it is just so and couldn't possibly be otherwise. Does this sound familiar? This is exactly how social media operates today. People accept ideas without personal verification. Truth becomes whatever is socially confirmed rather than objectively verified. Beliefs form through repetition rather than understanding. No distinction is made between hearsay and verified knowledge. Modern research validates this completely. Studies show that people seek social consistency for both epistemic and relational needs, and that social inconsistency is both negative and aversive. We literally change our perception of reality to match what others around us believe, even when we have direct evidence contradicting those beliefs. The root cause is what Beelzebub calls self-calming. This is the psychological mechanism by which humans avoid the effort required for genuine understanding, preferring the comfort of challenge of personal verification. Self-soothing refers to any conscious or unconscious activity that an individual uses to regulate their emotions and manage distress, but when it becomes pathological, it prevents growth and truth-seeking. Think about your own life. How often do you accept the information because it comes from sources you trust rather than investigating it yourself? How often do you believe something because everyone around you believes it? How often do you choose comfort over the difficult work of finding out what is actually true? The tragedy is that humans have abandoned personal responsibility for truth. We no longer make the least effort to know anything that can be understood solely by our own active reflection or our senses. We've outsourced our thinking to social consensus, expert opinion, and algorithmical feeds that tell us what we want to hear. Now, the 14th teaching, the trajectory of human development, is about, well, chapter 14 serves as one of the most sobering assessments of human potential ever written. The title itself provides a prophetic warning, the beginnings of perspectives promising nothing very cheerful. This isn't pessimism. This is the result of cosmic scale observation over the millennia. Beelzebub falls into an extended contemplation that reveals the emotional weight of what he's about to share. This isn't casual criticism. This is careful documentation of a species that has consistently chosen unconsciousness over awareness, comfort over growth, illusion over reality. The crucial revelation is that humans originally had the same potential as all three-brain beings throughout the universe. We possess what Beelzebub calls Martian development patterns, meaning we could have developed objective consciousness, authentic emotion, and harmonious action, just like conscious beings on other planets. But something went wrong. After the destruction of Atlantis, humans began creating conditions of existence that caused the quality of their radiations to go steadily from bad to worse. This forced great nature to transform human presences through various compromises and changes. Here's the cosmic irony. The individual humans became less capable of fulfilling their cosmic purpose. Nature compensated by dramatically increasing the human population. The massive growth in human numbers serves to maintain the required cosmic output through quantity rather than quality. The psychological uniformity that Beelzebub describes is chilling. Despite superficial differences in appearance based on geography and environment, all humans everywhere now possess the same abnormal psychological properties: egoism, self-love, vanity, pride, self-conceit, credulity, and suggestibility. All of these abnormalities Beelzebub identifies suggestibility as the most dangerous. This property makes humans vulnerable to external manipulation and prevents them from developing independent judgment. This connects directly to the Smith and Brown phenomenon from chapter 13. We're not just prone to accepting social consensus as truth, we're actively programmed to be manipulated by anyone who understands how to trigger our suggestibility patterns. But the most horrifying revelation is about war. Humans possess that property of three-brain beings there, thanks to which, on the strange planet alone, in the whole of the universe, does that horrible process occur amongst three-brain beings, which is called the process of the destruction of each other's existence. War is a uniquely human aberration. Nowhere else in the universe do three-brain beings systemically destroy each other. This makes Earth a cosmic anomaly, requiring special study and intervention. We are the only known species with potential for consciousness that consistently chooses violence, destruction, and unconsciousness instead. Now, the 15th teaching, the cost of good intentions, in chapter 15, this begins Beelzebub's detailed experiential accounts with his first descent to Earth, undertaken to rescue a young Martian who had become catastrophically entangled in human politics. This story reveals the fundamental challenges of trying to improve human systems, even with the best intentions and superior knowledge. The young Martian had lived amongst humans for 350 Martian years and had become involved with King Apollos of the city of Samlios on the continent of Atlantis. Believing he could improve the kingdom's administration, the Martian convinced the king to implement his suggestions for governance and reform. The results were catastrophic. The well-intentioned reforms triggered civil disobedience, economic collapse, widespread theft from the royal treasury, and complete breakdown of social order. The young Martian was forced to pay for the kingdom's expenses with his own resources, eventually depleting not just his wealth, but that of his entire kinsman's network. With both Earth-based and Mars-based members of his tribe, they found themselves unable to resolve the situation. They approached Beelzebub for help. This reveals important principles about cosmic society and extended kinship obligations across planets, collective problem solving for difficult situations, hierarchical wisdom where complex problems are referred to those with greater experience, and cross-planetary cooperation when facing major challenges. Beelzebub's response demonstrates true wisdom in crisis intervention. Rather than attempting remote solutions, he recognized that personal presence was necessary for effective action. Upon arriving on Earth, he convened a comprehensive summit involving all stakeholders, the tribal leaders, King Apollos, the young Martian himself. The resolution strategy that they developed was sophisticated and deeply understanding of human psychology. They systemically reverted the kingdom back to its prior governance structure. They replaced the king's officials with members from their tribe to absorb the impending backlash of public anger during the revolution. They allowed a controlled, tumultuous uprising to occur while protecting the king. Once the turmoil subsided, the king gradually reestablished his former government, with the subjects returning to obedience and tax payments. This reveals profound insights about human governance and psychology. Political systems are inherently unstable, driven more by emotion than reason. Resistance to change is mechanical, not personal. Revolutions rarely produce lasting improvements, often cycling back to familiar dysfunctional patterns. Progress, when it occurs, comes from sustained, gradual, and wise intervention, never from grand gestures or naive reforms. The young Martian's transformation is equally important. Unable to cope with the aftermath of his well-intentioned but disastrous intervention, he returned to Mars, where he eventually became an esteemed governor. His qualifications ultimately rested not in theory, but in tested, shared suffering and wisdom earned through direct experience of consequences. Now, bringing it all together, the complete analysis of human dysfunction. Well, these three chapters provide the most comprehensive analysis of human condition in Gurdjieff's entire work. Chapter 13 explains the psychological mechanisms that allow fantasy to be perceived as reality. Chapter 14 documents a historical trajectory that led current human limitations. Chapter 15 demonstrates the practical challenges of intervention and the educational value of failure. Together, they reveal how individual psychology or psychological dysfunction manifests in social dynamics and the cultural institutions, creating self-perpetuating systems that maintain human beings in states of unconsciousness despite their potential for development. The Smith and Brown phenomenon operates everywhere in modern culture. Social media algorithms amplify this by creating echo chambers where repeated exposure to the same ideas creates false certainty. Political discourse becomes tribal validation rather than truth-seeking. Academic institutions often reward conformity to accepted ideas rather than genuine investigation. Even scientific communities can become subject to groupthink when social validation becomes more important than objective verification. The self-calming mechanism that Beelzebub identified is now industrially exploited. Consumer cultures promise relief from the discomfort of uncertainty through purchasing decisions. Entertainment media provides endless distraction from the effort required for genuine understanding. Spiritual movements often promise easy transcendence rather than difficult work of conscious development. But understanding these patterns is the first step toward transcending them. When you recognize the Smith and Brown phenomenon operating in your own thinking, you can begin to verify information through personal investigation rather than social consensus. When you catch yourself engaging in self-calming behaviors to avoid discomfort or uncomfortable truths, you can choose the difficult path of genuine inquiry. Most importantly, when you understand that your current way of functioning represents a deviation from your true potential rather than your inherent nature, you can begin the work of conscious development with realistic expectations about the challenges involved. The young Martian story teaches us that good intentions without understanding often create more problems than they solve. Real change requires patient study of existing conditions, careful consideration of psychological factors, and the humility to accept that progress often comes through experiencing failure and learning from consequences. For people today, these chapters provide a roadmap for navigating a world where illusion and reality are increasingly difficult to distinguish. The rise of artificial intelligence, deep fake technology, and sophisticated manipulation techniques makes the development of genuine discrimination more crucial than ever. The solution isn't to retreat from engagement with the world, but to develop the inner faculties necessary for conscious participation. This means cultivating the being-Partkdolg-duty that allows you to verify the truth through direct experience rather than accepting social validation as evidence. It means recognizing when your own suggestibility is being triggered and developing the strength to withstand social pressure when your personal investigation leads you to conclusions that differ from consensus opinion. Most importantly, it means accepting that the work of conscious development requires sustained effort applied intelligently over time. There are no shortcuts to genuine understanding. There are no techniques that can bypass the fundamental requirements for personal verification of truth. The cosmic purpose for which humans were created remains the same, but the fulfilling that purpose consciously rather than mechanically requires understanding and working against the specific psychological mechanisms that prevent conscious development. You have the same fundamental potential as conscious beings throughout the universe. The crystallized consequences of historical circumstances can be gradually dissolved through sustained conscious work. The question is whether you're willing to undertake the real work of becoming conscious rather than remaining content with the comfortable illusions that society offers as substitutes for genuine development. The choice remains yours. But now you understand what forces you're choosing between. I'm Mark Roach. Wishing you all the best.